everyone. My name is Tori Moreira. I am the Community Outreach and Communications Director for the Enid Symphony. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Maestro Doug Newell of the Enid Symphony Orchestra. It's lovely to see you and chat with you as always.
Well, thank you. That's the nicest introduction I've ever gotten. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And so we've got a lot of things to talk about today. We're going to talk about what the ESO has been up to this past summer, talk about the exciting new season for this year, talk a little bit about the First Lady of Country Fiddle, Jana Jay, and her performance with the ESO on September 17th, among a lot of other things. So, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, definitely. So before we talk about all of that, tell us about the sponsors for this year's season.
Well, one of the most important things we have is underwriting sponsors for our symphony performances. And the first concert this season is sponsored by the Messer Bowers Insurance Companies. They have been with us for years sponsoring our opening concert, and as well Park Avenue Thrift. They're also a sponsor. We have underwriting also from the Oklahoma Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts, which is a big deal for communities our size.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, always a major thank you to our patrons for making the arts happen in our communities.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So with that in mind, so the ESO is starting up a brand new season later on this month, but they're not coming off of a long, relaxing summer break. So tell us about what...
Well, we begin our season with a free public performance in Meadow Lake Park, and this past July 4th, all the same. We're very lucky. We're still one of the orchestras in the United States that performs live with the fireworks show at the end of the evening. And it's absolutely fascinating the way Jim Burnett coordinates the fireworks with the music. He's quite a musician himself and understands how to punctuate with things in the sky what the symphony is playing on the ground. So fascinating. We always look forward to that, and it's one of the largest crowds. The city of Enid actually sponsors that along with Security National Bank. They get together and make that thing happen in the park, and it's a day-long thing which ends with the symphony concert and the fireworks at dusk. So one of our more pleasurable things. And then we just had a 4-concert series of, we call it Harvest Wine. It's the Edward Jones Harvest Wine series. They sponsor 4 Tuesday nights in August of solo and small groups performing. We had everything this year from Don Ryan, a jazz pianist who concluded our series, to Shelby Eicher and Kentucky White, guitar and fiddle. They were phenomenal. Shelby studied with Jana a few years ago. But also we had Rowland, a Scandinavian folk group, and Whiskey and Pie, an Oklahoma fiddle group. Just wonderful series, all setting the stage for the new concert series, which begins September 17th, featuring Jana Jay. It's just two names. One is the First Lady of the Country Fiddle, and the second is the lady with the blue violin, which when she was a teenager playing on hee-haw, she walked into production one day and they handed her this blue electric violin. She told me this story and she said, I don't know what to do. And they said, well, just play it and be yourself. And she was, and she's been internationally famous playing that blue fiddle, and she'll have it as well as her 18th century Italian violin with her. She's going to be a big surprise to everybody. You're going to hear fiddling like you never have live, and she's what we'd call a crossover artist. She can do it all.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting to have that for our listeners here in Enid.
Well, it's different for a symphony concert. We call it the Land Run Hoedown because it's on the anniversary of the Cherokee Strip Land Run, which opened this section of our state. And, it's only appropriate that we play fiddle music, some that originated in Oklahoma, like Faded Love of Bob Wills. Everybody knows that. I mean, that's an Oklahoma favorite right there. But Irish fiddle music and Scottish fiddle music, I mean, where did people come from who made the land run? From the old country, from Europe they came, and it's, I guess the movie Far and Away is about that. Yeah, it's going to be an evening of fiddling. The symphony has some great fiddle tunes that were actually put together by Dick Heyman for the Boston Pops Orchestra. We have that, and Aaron Copland's famous Hoedown will start the show. That was, he was inspired by an Appalachian fiddler who had made a recording that was in the Library of Congress. So there's so much wonderful music out there. And I had the opportunity last weekend to spend a couple of days with Jana in Grove at the Jana J. Fiddle Camp.
That's right.
And learn to fiddle. And fun, just a great time. We had like 4 mini concerts for each other during the 2 days, showing what we had learned in each session prior, and just a great time.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it's wonderful that you had that opportunity to actually get involved in the world of fiddling and play it for yourself. It sounds like you put down the baton for a few days and then picked up your fiddle at this.
Yes. Well, my pandemic project, one of them, was to begin taking violin lessons. I have a marvelous teacher here in town, Carolyn Turek, who I hope will forgive me for not being there today, but nonetheless, haven't practiced enough to have a lesson. And you heard that first, children. You heard that first. Practice before your lessons.
True.
But I've spent 2 years working quite diligently to learn to play violin, and I may play a fiddle tune or two with Jana. We'll see what happens. She might invite me. We'll see.
Ooh, that would be exciting. Yeah. So how has it been, like working with her, bringing her to the Enid Symphony? Like, how was that process? Like, what kind of inspired you for this first concert, bringing in Jana J, in a traditionally classical?
The entire season is called Horizons. And this all came about through my administrative associate, Casey Malaganis, knew a fellow who is an amateur photographer, and she was showing me some of his photography during the week that I was really thinking about what are we going to call this season. And it's all landscape photography from Oklahoma. So every poster, every ad you see this year about the symphony will have Oklahoma landscape photography as a background. So I looked at it, and they were all horizon shots, and I thought, yeah, horizons, that's it. Because the programming is such that, after almost 3 years now of having to reschedule everything, people canceling that couldn't come in, couldn't fly in, etc., we decided to go with a season of all Oklahoma artists and feature Oklahoma composers, living composers, and composers of times past as well. And so I looked at this photography and thought, there's something different beyond each horizon. So we're having everything from fiddle music to jazz saxophone to classical piano and classical violin at the end, and then a Christmas concert featuring 2 of our own Enid natives to boot. So that's how that came. But as far as Jana, I'd known of Jana for some time. We have the same agent in Tulsa who books LaWanna and I to go out as the maestro and the Mrs. playing and singing love songs. and she books Jana for other things. So I've never heard Jana sing. I imagine she could. But nonetheless, I worked through Nancy Size in Tulsa, who introduced us, and we became very fast friends within the last couple of months. So we're looking forward to her being here.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, it's sure to be a very exciting opening concert for this year's season. So people definitely be prepared. Go out and buy your tickets for this first concert. So
that magic number is on the bottom of the screen,
yes.
237-9646, or the magic website, enidsymphony.org. Best deal is to buy a season ticket. All concerts, it averages out to $25 a seat. Tickets are $30 and above for single tickets. So come and see what you've been missing if you've never been.
Of course, yeah. So it'll be a really, really exciting opener to the season. So in addition, you guys have the, the major concerts with the guest artists. What else do we have in store for us? I know there's the Carnegie Hall Link Up. Can you tell us about that?
Carnegie Link Up is, those concerts are for children in grades 3 through 5 in Enid, both in public and private schools. And it is a year-long program that where Carnegie Hall sends educational materials to classroom music teachers. And they may use it however they like. Every child has access to this, to the websites and the information 24 hours a day throughout the year. There's a different theme each year. This year the theme is The Orchestra Moves. So it's about movement in music. The children, we've purchased recorders for each of them to play. They have dances to learn, they have songs to sing. So it's an interactive concert. And we do these here in Enid in March, I believe the 8th. And in April, we go, once again, we were invited back to the McKnight Center in Stillwater to play there for children in the Payne County Public Schools. So we'll serve about close to 4,000 elementary children between Enid and Stillwater on the 1st of March and the 1st of April of next year. And that keeps us very busy.
Yeah, imagine like having this opportunity for our younger future musicians in the Northwest Oklahoma region. So that's a really amazing opportunity to have for them.
It's, I have to say that my first exposure to a symphony orchestra was through public schools. In 3rd grade, they started taking us to the concerts of the Charlotte, North Carolina Symphony Orchestra, and all of our music subsequently when we began playing in band and orchestra, most of our teachers played in the Charlotte Symphony. So that was very exciting to see them on stage and to hear the orchestra.
Yeah, that's amazing how we get our starts that lead us to professional musicians as we get older. So that's lovely. Yeah. So do you have any other performances coming up this season?
Well, beyond Jana, in October we're doing something totally different and off the charts for symphony orchestras. We're bringing a saxophone soloist, Jonathan Nickel, who is the professor at University of Oklahoma. I brought him in last year to play with the James Taylor Show. And it was Steamroller Blues. You may remember, those of you who were at that performance. Absolutely phenomenal. And he played one piece on the show and it blew everybody away, and I just decided we've got to feature this guy with the orchestra. So in October on the 22nd we'll feature Jonathan Nickel. In November on the 26th we'll have a Christmas concert. We like to be first with that. We will feature Brock Johnson, baritone, who grew up here, teaches at University of Texas A&M, and we'll feature Lindy Wilson, who is a spouse of one of our instructor pilots here at Vance Air Force Base. We met her last spring when we asked if anyone in the audience would like to get up and sing a duet with our guest baritone, Rob Glaubitz of the Painted Sky Opera. And I won't admit that it was staged, but she got up and she sang beautifully. And she knew everything that was going to happen. So we invited her to be a guest artist this year. At the same time, Rob invited her to begin a master's degree at University of Central Oklahoma. So that was exciting. We took February off this year simply because we have our big fundraiser, the soiree, where it's a board fundraising event for the orchestra. But we had a concert scheduled last year in February and had to move it to May because it was 3 degrees that day. So we've just still taking a little precaution there. So in April we bring Sergio Monteiro, who's the piano professor at Oklahoma City University, and we're also playing a work by a composition teacher, composer at Oklahoma City University, Clint Williams, a piece, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, that was written last year to in honor, in memorial of the Tulsa Race Massacre of the early 1920s, 21. It's a short piece, jazz influence. Then in April, we're going to perform portions of music that of a ballet that was written to honor the 5 Native American ballerinas who in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s achieved international acclaim. They were practically the 5 leading names in the dance world at that time. And I mean, if you haven't been to Fairfax and seen the Tall Chief Theater, which was named for the Tall Chief family, Maria and Marjorie were there. In fact, the home where Luana and I live now was host to a performance by 10-year-old, not Marshall Larkin. And it's absolutely fascinating for all this history. But this piece of music entitled The 4 Moons, which represented the 4 tribes from which these ballerinas came, was played once at its premiere and not again, and for no good reason. It's very beautiful music. So we're going to feature that as one of our Oklahoma Native American composers, Lewis Ballard, who in the 1930s was studying writing music composition in Paris. There were a number of Oklahomans in that period who went to Europe and became rather famous on the continent there as composers, dancers, singers, what have you. It's quite a history of involvement in the classical music particularly from Oklahoma, and some even from this area. Then in April, we closed the season with Caroline Turek performing an American violin concerto. We always think of violin concerto, that has to be some European guy that lived 200 years ago. No, this is Samuel Barber, who is an American who passed away really not too many years ago. And he wrote a really fascinating piece for violin and orchestra. So we're excited about that. You know, people think, oh, going to the symphony, that's something different. Yes, it is. It's an exciting experience. You can come and enjoy. Our prices are very reasonable. Our auxiliary charges you, well, Cokes by donation. We have a cash bar before and after. We have receptions afterwards to meet our guest artists. It's a night out. And if you're looking for something different to do, it's a great place to spend an evening at the Enid Symphony Center.
Yes, most definitely. And I kind of want to circle back to the Janet J concert. Speaking of, you know, trying to bring audience members in, making it a night out. So you have 2 completely different genres. You've got country music, and then you've got classical music. You know, you've got Faded Love and traditional country songs, and then you have the Bach double concerto. So how you're essentially trying to bring in country listeners to a classical concert and classical listeners to a country concert. So
she's playing the first movement of the Bach concerto, and it's really a fiddling piece. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that Irish, Scottish fiddle music evolved out of music written by the great composers Vivaldi, Corelli, the Italians, and their protégés would travel up through Europe and would perform, and so others would imitate and create sort of an indigenous sound to their country. And same thing happens. You have Appalachian fiddling. You have Western swing fiddling. I mean, it's all different. But it all goes back to its roots in classical technique. Changed a little bit, and every fiddler doesn't study classical music, and every classical musician doesn't study fiddling. Same instrument, same capacity to work, but it's a different form of expression. So Jana is going to show, you know, a lot of people think of her only as a country music specialist. She actually studied at the Vienna Conservatory
Oh, I see.
and was studying there, finished her studies there, came back to the United States, and went to LA and had this audition for Hee Haw. And one of the producers had heard her play and brought her in to play for Roy Clark and Buck Owens and Chet Atkins, and they immediately invited her to be on the show, and she was featured every week doing something. So it's, you know, my favorite quote about music is what Leonard Bernstein said, it's all jazz. And the idea of that is it all springs spontaneously from the mind, from the soul, from the heart. And, you know, we want people to have that kind of experience when they come into Symphony Hall, and dress casually, walk in, enjoy yourself, and just have a great night out.
Yeah, that sounds so exciting. Just an absolutely wonderful opportunity. Really something in each concert for everybody. People of all backgrounds, people of all music interests, life stages. Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity. So excellent, yeah. So we have so many things coming up for this season with all of the concerts and all of these engagements. So what is funding this?
Well, let's see. Funding is funding comes from so many sources for the Enid Symphony Orchestra. We sell advertising for program book. That gives us maybe 5% of our budget. Our budget for having a professional orchestra in Enid is about $365,000 a year. It takes that to pay all of the musicians, to employ those of us who are on the staff, to rent the music, to rent the sound system. We own our hall, so we have utilities, we have insurances, we have communications, et cetera, et cetera. And funding comes from subscribers, single ticket buyers, corporate, foundation, individual donors, and rental. We rent the facilities of the Enid Symphony Center out for non-symphony events. And so that those things combined help us gain the funding that we need each year for the orchestra. It's always a challenge, and a particular challenge this year, simply because we're coming out of the pandemic. This will be the first season everything's going to be in the hall this year. And Lord willing, no concerts moved, no rain delays, nothing.
Fingers crossed.
Nothing of that nature. You know, sometimes things happen, but I must say, because of the facilities at Government Springs Park, we have wonderful city facilities here, by the way, for outdoor events. Because of those facilities, we were able to perform every concert we scheduled in the last 2.5 years. Maybe not when, and with the particular guest stars, we had a lot of changes. But we really live in a city that has great quality of life, facilities, and events out there. And we have maintained support from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Oklahoma Arts Council, which are very important to us. But the sponsors we mentioned earlier are just so significant to our continued success.
Of course, yes. We need patrons to bring arts to the community. So that's wonderful.
We do. You know, the things of true merit that have a longer shelf life than 6 weeks as a #1 hit. Things of value must be maintained, they must be nourished, they must be supported, and they must be experienced. which is why we do the children's program to start them young. If there are corporate sponsors there that are interested in perhaps assisting with the symphony, we would certainly appreciate you calling the number there on the screen or shooting us an email and letting us know of your interest in how we may partner with you to co-sponsor and share an event that will draw a particular segment of audience that would be of benefit to your corporation, to your business.
Yes, of course. Yes, the Enid Symphony has been just such a icon for the culture of not only Enid, but of northwestern Oklahoma and the surrounding areas. So as much support as we can give to continue having the Enid Symphony doing all of the good work that we can do, I think the better off we're as an Oklahoman society,
Well, Enid is really a very cultured community. It has been from the beginning. We had the very first civic orchestra in the state. It predates Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Bartlesville, Lawton, predates Tulsa Opera. We also had the first opera company, which was founded by a Mrs. J.W. Hill, Nellie Hill, who had a passion for opera and was bringing in singers from all over the world to present concerts in the Glenwood Amphitheater. Most people know where the Glenwood Park is on Randolph, just before, as you go down the hill and go up to Adams Elementary School. On the north side of Randolph, there is the site of what was an amphitheater, which seated 1,000 or so. It had actually a stage, a fly space for scenery. It had an orchestra pit. It was an open door then. It was torn down in 1955. Mrs. Hill died in 44, and it fell into nobody using it, and it fell into disrepair and was taken down. But the city has always had patrons who saw that the very finest in culture and entertainment could be brought to Enid. There were so many people significant for this. Mrs. Hill, for example, led the effort to raise money to put the Doughboy statue to World War I veterans that is on the side of the courthouse lawn. LaWanna and I are very fortunate to live in a house that her father built for her after her husband passed away at an early age. But she also had a theater company, brought in a costume designer from New York to sew costumes upstairs. Kind of neat living in a theater.
Of course. Yeah. So it's definitely, we've got an amazing season coming up. It's really integral to the Enid community, celebrating, Oklahoman artists, composers, arrangers, performers. We really got a wonderful season coming up, So I really wanted to thank you for speaking with me today about the upcoming concerts and sort of what we've, been up to over the past summer. I encourage listeners and I encourage audience members, everywhere to, buy season tickets, at least buy a ticket for the September 17th concert, because we're sure in for a really, really exciting time later on this month.
So, for the Enid Symphony Orchestra, I'm Doug. This is Tori. Please come.
Yes. Call the number below or check out the website at the bottom of your screen.